record on my computer. All right, everybody, welcome to the Broward Real Estate and Business Network that has been meeting for many decades in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. We meet on Zoom every Thursday and at Denny's Restaurant at 3151 Northwest 9th Avenue, Oakland Park on the first Thursday of every month. So we have a special presentation today by Lynn Ottimer, a mortgage broker, who is going to discuss, Eric, if you could mute yourself, I'd appreciate it. So Lynn Ottimer is going to discuss proposed legislation in condominium law. So thank you very much. It is yours, Lynn.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. And this is not proposed. What I'm going to talk about is already been passed. So it's a legislative update. This was given to me by a marketing person from an engineering firm that does these inspections. And so he was very generous to share this with me. So I think the legislation is S like Sam, B like boy, dash 4, the number 4, D like dog, and it's highlighted mandated statewide milestone inspections and structural integrity reserve studies for condominiums and cooperatives. So there's a lot here, but I'm going to highlight the things that I think are most important, and what's going to come out of that is questions that I'm going to be putting together to share with my realtors and anybody who's looking to buy a condo or who owns a condo, questions that now this is going to spur the questions. Okay, so the first item is, and I'm looking at something in printing, that's why I'm not looking directly at the camera, just so you know. So the milestones inspections, so it requires condos and cooperatives that are 3 stories or greater. Hold on, my cat just decided he wanted to join the meeting here, so, okay, sorry. That are 3 stories or greater in height to have a milestone inspection of the building's structural integrity by a licensed architect or engineer in the state of Florida when a building reaches 30 years of age and every 10 years thereafter, or 25 years of age and every 10 years thereafter, if the building is located within 3 miles of a coastline. So everybody has to be inspected. It just has to be what your requirement is. It requires that if a milestone inspection is required, the building certificate of this building certificate of occupancy was issued on or before July 1st, 1992. The building's initial milestone inspection must be performed before December 31st of 2024. So it is putting requirements on the management and or condo associations who would perform that and make sure it gets done. The next thing of great interest, it also requires that the inspection report results be provided to local building officials and the associations, and that it requires an inspector prepared summary outlining areas of deficiency or repair to be provided to the unit owners by mail or email. It gives the unit owners the right to inspect and copy as official records the milestone inspection report and all other inspection reports relating to structural or life safety, and gives renters the right to inspect the milestone inspection reports. So be aware of that. Requires associations to report to the Florida Division of Condominiums, Timeshares, and Mobile Home Division the number of buildings that are 3 stories or higher in height and the total number of units in such buildings on or before, it's already past this deadline, January 1st, 2023. So that's a question you can ask your condo association or your property manager. Was this report already submitted? And requires the division to publish that information on its website. It requires condominium associations and cooperative associations to complete a structural integrity reserve study every 10 years by a licensed architect or engineer in the state of Florida for each building in an association that is 3 stories or higher in or greater in height. And it requires associations existing on or before July 1st, 2022 that are controlled by non-developer unit owners to have a structural integrity reserve study completed by December 31st, 2024. Those would be, I think, what they're talking about, like places like Kings Point and the other large condo places where there is a developer that has some control over their amenities and stuff like that. I think I'm not 100% sure really what that requires. So there's more here, but I that's what I think are the things that are most pertinent to anybody who owns or is thinking about owning a condominium, and to put forward these questions to your condo association and or your property manager to get some answers. Anybody who wants a copy of this whole summary, I'm glad to send it to you. Unfortunately, for this last little bit, I have to join the meeting on my phone, and so that's a little awkward. I can't really like put in my contact information and download everybody's contact information. So I'm going to give you my email right now. And so if you want it, just send me the request and I'll send it. And also, if Maurizia is here, she would also be somebody to comment about all this. So my email is LOT like Tom, T like Tom, I M like mother, ER at amres, that's A M like mother, R like red, E S like Sam.com.
You send it, or I'll do it. Just write it down, send it out.
So Erico Bueno, did you have any comments? You're muted.
Can you put this on the chat box, the email and the
Just write it down.
Or can somebody do it for me? It's not convenient for me to take the phone out of the, it's not convenient to do it right this moment.
Right, so Lynn, was it your feeling that this was going to have a significant impact on the finances of condos and or the ability to finance a condo and or the saleability of condos?
My short answer is yes. I mean, Dave, and if James is here, I mean, Fannie and Freddie and the lenders that, the agencies that we deal with, they're already on it, okay, nationwide. So, but of course it affects Florida the most. So, there's already new and updated information that we have to provide when someone is a borrower looking to buy a condo. And one thing that I would suggest that of anybody who owns or is thinking of owning a condo is, or buying one, is that I would request the last 3 months of the association meetings minutes, because if anything has been mentioned in there, it would kind of be there. That's what the lenders are in some cases asking us for just the same. So if they're asking for it, I'd be interested in it myself personally. And so there's one piece here that's not in this, what I'm looking at, and I'm going to look to get more information about it. And that is that the ways that these repairs have to be planned for. So in other words, how is the condominium association going to have the money for the repairs if there are structural or safety deficiencies? So that the way I heard them talking about it at this meeting, but they didn't really go into it a lot in detail, is that there isn't like hard deadlines. So like, let's say that you need a new roof. Okay, that would certainly come under the purview of this. So they're not going to say, oh, well, you have to have that new roof by this and such a date. That they're going to say, okay, well, how much life is left in the roof? Okay, the roof has 5 years left, let's say. So then the association then has to plan to have enough money to have that roof repaired or replaced or whatever they got to do within that 5-year period. So there is like stepped in opportunities to raise the money. It's not like, okay, everybody who owns the condo, we need $10,000 from every owner, like in 2 months. It's not going to be like that. But I don't have like the exact details of how those that stepped in opportunity to get the money or save the money or collect the money is going to be done. So that's another feature.
Lynn, I have a question about the actual inspection itself. You say it's every 10 years for buildings over 2 stories. So
Over three or more.
over 3, okay.
3 or more.
So you're in a 6-story building and every 10 years you need an architect or engineer to come out and do an inspection. Do you, now me, I assume, and I don't know if this is the right assumption, but every 10 years, there'll be a special assessment for, say, a 30-unit building for $150 per unit, so they can pay an engineer to come out and look at it. So that'll just be an expected every 10-year special assessment, maybe $150, so they can pay someone to come out every 10 years and do this. So once every 10 years, you should expect that assessment. Would that sound about logical to you?
Well, that is a way it could be paid for. Me, if I was a property manager or on the board of a condo, I would start making a line item in my yearly budget to have that money set aside so it can be done. I wouldn't just wait and just send everybody, okay, now it's time for our 10-year thing. Okay, we need to collect this much more money.
So
That's what makes sense
you're-
to me.
You're
Right.
saying increase the monthly condo fee, say it's $350 a month, you'd be paying $365 a month, and that extra 15 would be a line item towards a 10-year inspection.
Well, how it would affect the monthly fee, I can't say, but it has
Right,
to
but
do with the
something along those
formulation
lines.
of the budget. It would have to do with the formulation of the budget. So there
Gotcha.
might be other things that they would cut back on in order to accommodate other fees that are now imposed.
So Lynn, let's say the structural inspection reveals something catastrophic, like a Champlain Towers, if they caught it in advance and the entire pool area or parking structure needed to be rebuilt or substantially reinforced. Is there a way that would be financed, or would you have a massive assessment?
So there are banks that specialize in financing these kinds of improvements or repairs or corrections for condos. And so it would behoove the condo board and or the property manager, they would have to look into that, because these reports have to go to the state. It's not like you can hide it anymore. So they're going to know, and there's going to be a deadline. And so there are banks that do the financing. But again, okay, so then it's like, think of it like a mortgage. Okay, so now you have a payment, and how is that going to be dispersed among all of the property owners to pay the debt?
And what is the penalty if the condo doesn't comply?
Oh, that's a great question. In this, what I have, it doesn't say what the penalties are, but I'm sure there are penalties.
Just FYI, one of my friends that's in the mortgage business has some clients in that building that collapsed. And not only are they holding the people that were on the board 15 years ago liable, and there's lawsuits against the people on the board, it's every which way. These people are suing everybody, and everyone in our industry is in major flux about what to do. So Eric, I can tell you, it's very scary. I like buying condos, and my son found a couple, and I made those questions to the HOA Thank God they were professionals and they answered them. You know, they're all going to have to do these inspections, and they're all going to have to fix the inspection reports because they're just too scared of what, I mean, think about it. Your building could collapse. You know, it's terrible, you know, and this is going to disrupt and change the whole condominium world, you know. So if you're living in one, if you can get it sold, and because you don't like the idea, but these jobs, my buddy is a broker and he does these loans. They're 3, 4, 8, $20 million. So, you know, it's serious stuff. So your payment's going to go from whatever it is to a lot more, not a few bucks. So it's a scary time right now.
Yes, it
David,
is. I
just to
agree.
add a comment to what you said, part of the issue, I think, is if you own a condo or you're trying to rent it or sell it, is that everybody involved, from property management, mortgage brokers, banks, there is a lot of confusion and misinformation regarding the law. So there's a lot of rumor, there's a lot of this. So people are walking out just because they are afraid. Whether they have a reason to be afraid or not, they don't know, because it's just a lot of gossip, okay? Another question that I have is the following. When I'm trying to rent my condo, or anybody tries to rent their condo, they are competing with rental apartments. Like in my area over here, there around me, there's like 5, 6 stories building just rental apartments, okay? So I'm competing with them on rentals, okay? So does this law also affect 6-story buildings that are just rental, but they are not condos?
I don't believe so, because what it has to do with is right in the title. It says condominiums and cooperatives. It doesn't say anything about rental buildings. It doesn't say anything about that. So
But that's strange, isn't it? Because if the idea is to protect people from the building collapsing in them, does it make a difference if the building is a condo or just a rental building?
well, your question's a good one. I I can't say I have an
I
answer.
think
but-
rental buildings are more of a rent at your own risk, and people know that going into it. Whereas a condo is rent at the risk of the condo association. And that's why it might be better to buy in a condo, because you've got an association looking out for you. In a 10-story apartment building, all you've got is a property manager there, and you know that going into it. If there's no association, the maintenance might or might not be there. You don't really know what you're getting with an apartment. So it's kind of an at your own risk thing. If you don't want the risk, you let an association take care of it for you. If you do want the risk, you can live in an apartment building. I know it sounds crazy, but I think that's the direction it's heading. I would love to see them put in some sort of legislature for any building above 3 stories. Go ahead, Dave. You got it.
I think this is all brand new. It's just been happening this last year or so. And I really believe that if it gets down to the bottom of this, it's about those companies that had big lobbyists that were in the pockets of the guys that made all these decisions. Because if you're in your right mind, how is it okay for an apartment building with 1,000 people live in it, not any different than a condo with 1,000 people live in it?
Oh,
It's the
it's not.
exact same thing.
It's not. It is the
So-
exact same thing. I think the difference is that the people that were building these brand new you're right, they lobbied to get the condos in a situation where their apartments would look more appealing. And now we can rent our apartments for a little less than those condos rent for, because they have to go through this legislation, but we don't. And no, it's not fair and it's not right. But I'm hoping that the state wakes up to that fact and does say, hey, by the way, now any residential building over 3 stories is going to have these inspections, and that would be the right thing to do. As you guys know, I've been in construction for 30 years. I've parked in a condo parking lot, underground parking lot, and you look up and you see rebar exposed and you see rust spots everywhere, and you just know something's not right. This is just not maintained well. And in a condo association, this is where the condo association is supposed to have people that do these, they see something like that, like they notify the board. The board's supposed to look into it and get it fixed and repaired. But when the rust is there for 3 years, I go to this condo over and over, it's never repaired. Whose fault is that? It's the condo association's fault. It's the people that live there. you're an association, you're like a commune. You all live together for the benefit and safety of each other. And if you don't want to do that, then go live in an apartment building where nobody cares about each other and no one knows their neighbors and nobody's on a board. And I think that's like a big part of it right now. So you're right, Dave. They should have it for any building that has people living in it. It's just for safety reasons. Absolutely.
And you're missing also the hotels. I was a caterer in Miami Beach, and I've been in every nook and cranny on Miami Beach. And I can tell you, those hotels are as bad as the condos and as bad as the apartments. They're all going to be, because that salt is doing some damage.
Yeah.
You know, it's not pretty, and this is going to be ugly for the next 10 or 20 years.
Even the Fontainebleau has issues. My wife and I went there about 3 weeks ago just to have dinner at the Brazilian restaurant there. And we were walking down this beautiful pathway inside the building. And I look up and I say, honey, look at this. The corner bead's actually coming apart on what they're doing up here. And she looks and goes, wow, I wonder what the rest of the building's got going on.
I've done
So
a lot
that's
of
where you have
parties
to
there.
wonder.
I've done a lot of parties there, and I can tell you, it's scary.
And it's a beautiful building and it's a well-maintained building. I mean, I've been down in the boiler rooms there because I did some work in that place, just painting and cleaning, but it's, you know, it could still use some sort of legislature to overlook it, or some sort of, maybe they do have an engineer coming in. A place like that probably has an engineer every 5 years because, you know, the owners are concerned about keeping their investment up. But there's a lot of buildings, like you said, just the owners don't care and they don't do it. So it's a scary thing and they need to fix it. I hope state legislature does step in on that.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, and Lynn Ottimer for bringing this up. And with that, I'm going to stop the recording and we'll proceed with our meeting. Thank you, everyone.